It's been a little over 3 years since the day my wife, well, ex-wife now, sat me down on our couch and told me she was leaving. The words are still etched in my memory, though I'd be lying if I said I could recall everything she said. What stuck was the general theme: she wasn't happy. She had found someone else, and she felt it was time for her to move on. I remember sitting there, dumbfounded, my world tilting as I tried to process what was happening. This was the woman I had spent nearly a decade of my life with. The woman I had built a home with, shared dreams and plans with. And now, in what felt like the blink of an eye, it was all crumbling. To say it was a shock would be an understatement. I had thought we were solid, that whatever rough patches we went through were just that, rough patches, temporary. But it turned out she had been seeing someone else for months behind my back. A co-worker, no less. The idea of her sneaking around with someone else, while I was oblivious, blindsided me. She didn't seem remorseful, though. In fact, she looked almost relieved. It's funny how that sticks with me. Her sense of relief while I felt like I was suffocating. The days that followed were a blur of confusion, anger, and overwhelming sadness. I couldn't escape the relentless questions. How had I not seen this coming? What had I done wrong? Was I that terrible of a husband? The self-doubt crept in, chipping away at what little confidence I had left. I had never felt so small, so unworthy. She moved out quickly, taking her things without much fuss. It was almost as if she had planned it meticulously. Everything packed neatly and transported in one fell swoop. She moved in with him, the co-worker, immediately, while I was left in our now empty home. The silence was deafening. There's a kind of loneliness that comes with the sudden absence of someone you thought would always be there. And it's a void that seems impossible to fill. For months after she left, I felt like I was walking through life in a haze. I went through the motions at work, half-heartedly interacting with co-workers, coming home to a house that no longer felt like a home. My friends tried to be there for me, offering support and words of encouragement. But nothing seemed to penetrate the fog I was living in. It was as if I was watching my life from a distance, disconnected from everything that had once mattered. Meanwhile, I couldn't help but think about her and her new life. In the age of social media, it's almost impossible to avoid updates, even when you're not seeking them out. I would see pictures pop up now and then. Her smiling with him, looking like she didn't have a care in the world. I tried to block it out, but curiosity got the best of me. I found myself scrolling through her photos, reading between the lines of her posts, trying to make sense of how she could be so happy while I was drowning. At first, I felt an almost obsessive need to compare my life to hers, as if tracking her happiness would somehow help me understand where I had gone wrong. But as time passed, something unexpected happened. I stopped caring. I can't pinpoint exactly when the shift occurred. Maybe it was a slow process, like a bruise that gradually fades until one day you realize it's gone. Or maybe it was after I finally allowed myself to grieve fully, to accept that our marriage was over and that no amount of dissecting the past would change that fact. Whatever it was, I found myself less interested in her life and more focused on rebuilding mine. It didn't happen overnight. There were still days when I felt the sting of betrayal, the hollow ache of loneliness. But there were also moments of clarity. Times when I realized that I was free to live my life on my own terms, without the weight of her expectations or judgments. For the first time in years, I had the opportunity to rediscover who I was outside of our marriage. I started small. I picked up old hobbies that I had abandoned over the years, things that made me feel like myself again. I reconnected with friends I had lost touch with, started going out more, and even took up running, a decision that shocked anyone who knew me before. Running became a kind of therapy, a way to clear my mind and work through the emotions that had been weighing me down for so long. With each passing day, I felt a little stronger, a little more in control of my own life. And somewhere along the way, I stopped thinking about her altogether. I no longer cared about what she was doing, where she was, or who she was with. I was too busy living my own life to be concerned with hers. It wasn't until much later that I found out she and her new man were struggling. I didn't go looking for the information. It came to me through mutual friends. The kind of gossip you can't avoid even if you try. Apparently, things weren't going as smoothly as she had hoped. They had moved in together too quickly, it seemed. And now they were dealing with financial issues, arguments over small things, and a general sense of dissatisfaction that she hadn't anticipated. I remember feeling an odd sense of vindication when I heard the news. Not because I wanted her to suffer. Despite everything, I didn't wish her harm. But because it reaffirmed something I had come to realize: leaving wasn't the solution to her problems. She had thought that by starting over with someone new, she could escape whatever unhappiness she had been feeling in our marriage. But the truth is, you can't outrun your own issues. They follow you, no matter where you go or who you're with. While she and her new partner were busy dealing with their own struggles, I was thriving. I had moved on in more ways than I thought possible. I had started a new job, one that gave me more fulfillment than I had ever felt before. I had built a social life that was rich and rewarding, filled with people who genuinely cared about me. I had even started dating again, though I took things slowly, enjoying the process of getting to know someone without the pressure of trying to fill a void. I was finally living the life I had always wanted, free from the emotional baggage that had weighed me down for so long. And it felt good. Really good. There's something incredibly empowering about realizing that you're not defined by the people who leave you. For so long, I had felt like a failure. Like I wasn't enough. Like I had somehow caused her to walk away. But the truth is, her leaving wasn't about me. It was about her own dissatisfaction, her own restlessness. And once I let go of the need to understand her motives, I was able to find peace. It's funny. In a way, she thought leaving would bring her happiness. But instead, it brought her more problems. And I, the one left behind, ended up finding the happiness I had been searching for all along. Life has a way of working out like that, in unexpected twists and turns. Now, when I think back to the day she left, I no longer feel the sting of betrayal. Instead, I feel gratitude. Her decision to leave forced me to confront the parts of myself I had been neglecting, to rebuild my life in a way that was authentic to who I am. And for that, I'm thankful. I'm thriving now. Not because I needed to prove anything to her, but because I learned how to thrive on my own terms. And as for her and her new man, well, I wish them the best. But I'm too busy living my own life to worry about whether they are keeping up. In the months that followed, life kept pushing me forward. I hardly thought about her anymore. She became a distant memory. A chapter 1 had already closed. But as fate would have it, life wasn't done with its twists. It was a quiet afternoon when I got a text from an old mutual friend. My phone buzzed on the table, and as I glanced at the screen, I saw her name. A name I hadn't spoken aloud in months. The message was simple, yet it sent a chill down my spine. "Hey. Thought you'd want to know, she's trying to get in touch with you." I stared at the message, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Why would she want to talk to me now? After all this time? After everything that had happened? The questions churned in my mind. But I didn't reply. I wasn't interested. Whatever she had to say, it didn't matter anymore. But the universe seemed determined to throw her back into my path. Days later, I ran into her at the grocery store of all places. I hadn't seen her in person since the day she left. But there she was, standing in the frozen foods aisle, staring blankly at a carton of ice cream. For a moment, I almost walked the other way, pretending I hadn't seen her. But something in her posture, in the way she looked so defeated, caught my attention. She turned and spotted me before I could decide what to do. Our eyes met, and for a brief second, it felt like time had rewound. I could see the cracks in her facade, the weight of whatever had happened since we'd parted ways. Before I could even muster the will to greet her, she approached me. Her expression was a mixture of exhaustion and regret. She fumbled for words, clearly uncomfortable, as if she hadn't anticipated running into me. "Hi," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I simply nodded, unsure of what to say. The silence between us was thick, laden with everything that had gone unsaid for the past few years. Finally, she spoke again. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" I could have walked away. I could have said no and gone on with my day. But something made me stay. Perhaps it was curiosity. Or maybe it was the desire for closure I hadn't realized I still needed. "Sure," I replied, though the word felt foreign on my tongue. We found a quiet corner of the store, away from the noise and bustle of people. She hesitated before speaking, as if searching for the right words. "I made a mistake," she began, her voice trembling. "Leaving you. I mean, I thought I was doing the right thing, that I would be happier. But I wasn't. I'm not." I stood there, listening to her unravel, her words pouring out like a confession she had been holding onto for too long. She told me about her new relationship, how it had fallen apart, how the man she left me for turned out to be nothing like she had imagined. They had struggled financially, emotionally. The spark she had once mistaken for love quickly fizzled, replaced by resentment and regret. They had split up a few months ago. I could feel the tension in my chest tightening as she spoke. But I kept my expression neutral. This wasn't my problem anymore. It wasn't my burden to carry. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve anything from you. But I just needed you to know that I regret what I did. I lost myself. And I lost you. And it was the worst mistake of my life." I stood there, absorbing her words. But instead of anger or bitterness, I felt a strange sense of calm. I had moved on. I had rebuilt my life. Her regret didn't change anything for me. It didn't undo the hurt. But it also didn't define me anymore. I took a deep breath and finally spoke, my voice steady. "I'm sorry that things didn't work out for you," I said, surprising even myself with the sincerity in my tone. "But I've moved on. I'm happy now. And I hope you can find happiness too. But it's not with me." The weight of those words settled between us. She blinked, as if processing what I had said. There was no dramatic outburst. No tears. Just quiet acceptance. She nodded, wiping her eyes quickly as if she didn't want to break down in front of me. "I understand," she said softly, her voice barely audible. "I just needed to say it. I wish you the best." And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving me standing in that quiet corner of the store, feeling strangely at peace. I hadn't expected this encounter, but it had given me something I didn't realize I needed: finality. As I walked out of the store, I felt lighter, as if the last lingering ties to that chapter of my life had finally been severed. I didn't need her regret to validate my worth, nor did I need her to fix what had been broken. I had done that for myself. I had rebuilt my life from the ground up, and I was stronger for it. In the end, her struggles and regrets were hers to bear, not mine. I had moved on, and I was thriving. She had chosen her path, and I had chosen mine. And while our lives had taken drastically different turns, I knew one thing for certain: I was exactly where I needed to be.